Good day, welcome. It is National Wills Month and I'm joined by Enrico Truter, who's an estates consultant working for a very large administration company in South Africa, specialising in wills and estate administration. Now, for me, very important, it is an important day on the calendar of the year. And it is always a situation where it's a topic that is not being much spoken about. National Wills Month in the month of October and November. And I'm joined by one of my guests, Enrico, who's one of the consultants who will be able to give us some information, education, and knowledge transfer of the topic on hand. He's got an extensive amount of knowledge in the industry, more than 15 years, and that he will be able to share us some information around the importance of wills and information which we will highlight to you to basically take into account in terms of your own estate administration. So let's get straight into it. Enrico, welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
National Wills Month. I'm sure that you're very, very busy. And I must say it's a topic close to my heart. Importantly enough, let's get straight into it. What is a valid will and testament? And in my view, who makes a will and why the importance of it and why one should have one in place?
To start off with, a will is an actual legal document. So anybody should actually have a will. It doesn't mean that you need a large estate or a lot of property. Anyone who is a working person should have a will. Doesn't matter of your age. And like I said, it's a legal document that needs to be signed in a correct manner. And even though you've got that legal document signed, it's also very important to have it kept safe. Like with us, for example, we've got a special vault. We put the wills in, and that just ensures that when the client passes away, we know where the will are. In comparison to people that's got it at home, somewhere in a safe, somewhere under the mattress. And when that person passes away, nobody knows where that will is. So, yes, it is a legal document, so what goes into it is bound by law. Obviously, the person who will be drafting a will for you will show you what you can put in a will, what you can't, what is legally bound and what is not. But the main portion is just it must be signed in the correct manner and be kept in a safe place.
Awesome, thank you. I think that kind of sort of encapsulates the question. My next question has always been a concerning factor with me personally having to deal with estates over the years. This statistic in South Africa specifically, where according to the Master of the High Court, there's around about 70% of people in South Africa do not have a valid will and testament in place. So that is quite concerning. So in your view and opinion, why do you think people do not see this as important? And what contributes to people not having a valid will and testament in place?
I think there's a massive misconception when it comes to wills. Some people think that it's only for people who's got a house and a car and things like that, but it's actually not. If you have a house and a car and you are married or divorced, you obviously want those items to go to specific people. And most people do not really pay attention to that. For them, it's always that last thing on their mind. And I always say, as brokers, we always live in a worst case scenario world. And lots of people think, but I will most probably die at the age of 80 or 90 or 100 or whatever the case would be. And the fact is, life is uncertain. We don't know when we're going to pass away. So if you want to make sure that you leave a legacy behind, to put it that way, and you make sure that the person who needs to get an asset will actually get that asset, then you'll definitely need a valid will. Otherwise, all of your assets might end up in the wrong hands. It might even end up at government.
I think a question just on that point. In terms of what is the legal age of a person in South Africa that can make a will?
I think the legal age at the moment is 18. From 18 years onwards, because then you're seen as an adult. From then onwards, you can have a legal will. If you have it's a person that's, say, 16 years old, but he's already have a business or assets on his name, then obviously there will be a special consent made, and because obviously that person now have a legal estate that needs to get winded up.
Great stuff, thank you. Okay, so for me, as another question, there is this myth. A lot of people tend to think that you need to have a big estate, sort of maybe owning like property assets, that then only you need to have a will in place. Is this correct, and what are your views on this?
No, that's definitely not correct in the sense of that's cast in stone. Like I've mentioned before, everybody needs a will. It doesn't matter the size of your estate. And even if you have absolutely nothing, but you have a kid or children, and you need to appoint a guardian. So somewhere this needs to be written out on a legal document, and that is exactly where your will comes into play. So it doesn't matter if you have just 10,000 rand in the bank. I mean, that is an asset that needs to go somewhere. And if there's no will put in place, I can guarantee you that money is not going to end up where the initial client wanted that money to end up.
So just to sum up that question, so what you're saying is that it's important for each and everyone to have a will, irrespective of your size of the assets.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. No, that's fantastic. Okay, so there's also another question that I want to ask you. So if a person do have a will in place, or need to have the will reviewed, or need to make changes to their will, how often does one have to update their will? Can you sort of brief the audience on what constitutes that, and also if that will is valid or not?
Okay. As soon as you have what we normally in industry like to call a life-changing event, but what I mean with life-changing is, let's say for argument's sake, I leave my Toyota Hilux to you as my son, and now all of a sudden I sell that car and I buy a Ford Ranger. That will is actually not valid anymore in the sense of that there's no Toyota Hilux in that estate going. So when it comes to winding up the estate, the executives can ask, so where is this Toyota Hilux that needs to go? So small things like when you buy a new car, if you buy a new house, if there's a new child, anything like that changes your life basically, you need to amend your will. And in our case, for example, we would do that amendment free of charge. So it's not like you don't want to do it because there's a cost involved. No, you have to keep your will up to date, because it's going to be pointless. We try and wind up your estate. Now there's a house in there that you stayed back in 15 years ago, and the new properties now. So you can just see how it just becomes a domino effect of just one problem after another if the will is not kept up to date.
So just to summarize that question, so whenever circumstances change,
yes,
if you
definitely
buy a new property, the birth of a new child, receive an inheritance, so your advice strongly would be to review the will and make those changes to ensure that it is compliant.
That's
and
correct.
Up to date.
Yeah, that's correct. Normally, in our case, we can see that when the broker do his annual review with his client to oversee the life cover and investments and that's normally the time that we'll take a look at a will as well. Unless obviously something happens with the client buying a new house, he will inform the broker and they will do the amendment. But otherwise, yes, annually or biannually, they will definitely review on the will.
Okay, awesome. I like that. Okay, so another question I want to ask you, what is your advice to people out there, and what action must people take to ensure that their last will and testament is valid and it is in place, to ensure that the estate administration and legacies are left behind in the manner that they would have wanted it to be?
Okay, off the bat, I would say make sure that your will and your last will and testament is with a professional company. Just for reason that there could be small things that's like signed incorrectly, or stuff that's in the will is not worded correctly. So I would say, from my point of view, make use of the big guys. To put it that way, make use of the professionals, and then just have your will reviewed every now and again. And then if need be, if you do think, listen, let's just have a look. I mean, obviously I can contact you and you can arrange for somebody just to review their will for them. Make sure that the will is valid, that the service is free of charge in any case. So there should actually be no reason for them not to just have a will. Because, I mean, that is going to be most probably the most important document you will sign your whole entire life. So rather go that extra mile, have somebody come in, just review your will for you. If it's valid, thumbs up. If it's not, make sure that you get it all up to date.
I like the sound of that. I think one of the two things, in terms of my experience having to deal with, wills and estate administration, I think generally the public out there always just look at the will. If you could maybe give your views and opinions and factual information around the importance of liquidity in the estate. So what I'm referring to is that you have a will document that sort of, reads your wishes on its execution form, which is noted and worded, but also 95%, in my view, 95% of the states via the Master of the High Court don't have sufficient liquidity. Are you able to kind of maybe share some insight around that?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. Yes, that is the biggest problem. Normally when you hear about an estate that took 3 years or 5 years or something like that to wind up, normally it was because there was no liquidity in the estate. We at, I'm going to mention that, we at Capital Legacy, we pride ourselves on winding up the estate within 6 months. Fantastic. And the reason for that is we've got a professional drafting your will for you. So we know what's in your will is valid. We know that the will is up to date. And then the second portion to that is we make sure that there is liquidity in your estate. Because your normal lawyer or bank or whoever is going to tell you, okay, listen, so we've done a calculation, your estate is X amount, we need 400,000 to wind up your estate and estate duty fees, please pay us the money so we can start. If there's no funds to pay that, obviously they're not going to start. And then eventually they will get to a point where now they have to start selling off assets. So now it's like, okay, what do we sell first? Do we sell the house? Do we sell the car? We must keep in mind that the kids were supposed to inherit the house. Now we need to sell it just to get that 400k to start winding up the estate. And normally, immediately there you can know that this estate is not going to take 6 months to wind up. Now we're going to go through a process. We need to sell a house. We need to consent of everyone that we can sell the house. So it becomes a massive problem down the road. And that is normally the main reason why estates take so long to wind up, just because of liquidity.
Thank you. So just to sum up that question, in my understanding, is that if there's no cash or assets, not necessarily assets, but cash flow and life insurance in the estate, it could mean it could take years for that property to be wound up, and the transfer to your heirs and dependents will be delayed based on insufficient, cash flow or liquidity or insufficient life insurance in the estate.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. And one thing that you need to keep in mind, although let's say you're the person that passed away, life still carries on for those that stay behind. So you can have your will sorted out and your estate lease sorted out within 6 months, or it can take up 3 years. But for that 3 years, bonds still need to get paid, kids still need to go to school, people still need to eat. And sometimes, and we see it a lot in the past where the money is there, the asset is there, but there's no liquidity in the estate to wind it up to say, here's your inheritance, here you go. Sometimes we have to go back to the heirs and say, listen, we see there was a policy that paid out to you for 1 million, please, we need 400,000 of that to sort it out. And that's obviously not leaving a legacy anymore, because now we're actually just burning through cash just to wind up the estate, just to make sure that they can get what comes to them. And like I said, life carries on. Those people still need to eat, you still need to go and send the kids to school. So life doesn't stop, and the banks and the schools will be compassionate for 2 months, and after that they can say, if you don't start paying now, we can have an issue. So yeah, liquidity is a major problem normally in a state. So
in my view, what you're saying is that most of the cost, for winding up the estate will be consumed by the what we call the executors, who's winding up the estate. Okay, that kind of simplifies things a little bit. I think one of the questions, we've had recently, we've had 2 estate events which were held, which in my view was really successful. If you could maybe just give some guidance to the audience, in your view, why use Leon Bart Financial Advisory Services in conjunction with Capital Legacy Estate Administrators, based on your recent experience and success of the recent Wills and Estates informative sessions we've held now recently in October of 2020?
Like I've mentioned in those sessions that we've done, is most brokers actually just pass by the will. They don't want to do the will because most of them, frankly, doesn't even know how to draw up a proper will. So having a broker that gets his clients in and say, guys, you need a will, because I mean, this is actually where you need to start. This is the starting point. So if you jump the gun on the starting point, you can just imagine that the rest is not going to be 100% correct as we go on. So as I mentioned to all of them, you are actually privileged to have your broker inviting you to say, guys, we need to sort out your will. Most brokers just totally pass over it. So I would really say, make use of the opportunity, contact Leon, go through the process. And then the reason why I use Capital Legacy is we are, like you mentioned, we are the biggest when it comes to wills in the States. But we also offer a client a small plan that will indemnify all the fees, so that the plan that's been put in place by the broker, you for example, they can still leave that legacy to the children and the wife, etc., etc. Because we're not going to use up all of that life cover and all of that investment just to sort out the will, the state at least. So yeah, we do a small plan, and that will just put you in so much of a better space. And I must say, in the session that we've done so far, most people didn't even know about the plan. They didn't even know that, listen, for a minimal fee, well, I can actually just keep my legacy as it is. And I must say, most of the people that came through the sessions as well, at that point in time, they didn't understand really the importance of a will, because most people and most brokers out there don't really inform the clients of the importance of a will. And that is where you came in, and I take my hat off to you. It was brilliant.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I think just to sort of elaborate on that, one of the big things that I found when I left that session, that I felt empowered, that I've imparted valuable knowledge to the audience and to people. And I was inundated with calls afterwards, about to have more sessions like that, because I actually found that it's a topic that it's not often discussed. And my question is, why wait for Wills Month? It should be an ongoing conversation. And that it was massive education, massive information, massive knowledge transfer, and I think that I welcome that, and I think we should have more of those sessions into the future. And I'm sure that working closely with yourself and your team, who runs the estate administration side of things, I look forward to that opportunity. So, just in closing, audience, if my advice to you really, if you need to have your will drafted, changed or reviewed, or even just to assess its validity, you're welcome to contact me via my social media platform. My information is on the back screen, Leon Bart Financial Advisory, where you're welcome to post your questions, any information you need to know. If you have a new will drafted, I'm more than happy to deal with your questions and assist you with your new will, and to check its validity, to ensure that your estate date transfer in a manner that you would want it to be and it's updated. Please visit my website, leonbartomf.co.za, as it's there on the screen. I would welcome your comments, and I'm happy to assist with any information that you need further. I entrust that we've enlightened you with information around why the importance of a will, and why take action, which is very, very important. And I would consider, in my view, that each and every one of you must consider to have either your will drafted, reviewed, and for one of these specialists to have a look at it to ensure that the will is valid and compliant in terms of the rules that been set out by the Master of the High Court. Enrico, I think it was very insightful this morning. Thank you and your team for partnering with Leon Bart to ensure that we bring wealth and knowledge pertaining wills and estates to the people of South Africa. I thank you very much and look forward to our next event. Thank you.
Thank you.